Welcome to the show, everybody. Micah with CoronavirusDiaries, and today I'm lucky to speak again with Corey Benson of Curbside Productions. We are in the studio now. Corey, how are you doing?
I'm doing better than the last time we talked, actually. Quite a bit better. Yeah.
So what does that mean? How are you doing better and why?
Number of reasons we're doing better. We've finished a lot of the build out for the space, which has been great. We've upgraded a bunch of equipment, which has allowed us to really start working on some skills and getting people to a point where they're very comfortable with the equipment that we have. So our crew is coming up to speed. We're having more and more interest in potentially doing events here, which is something we're really excited about. And our PPP loan came through. I'm sorry, the PPP did not come through. We did get the EIDL.
So, for people that like acronyms and probably know what all that means, jump into PPL and EIDL, and what is this?
Yep. So the EIDL is the loan that allows you to basically continue your operations. The PPP is specifically for continuing your payroll. Because we're in a gig-based environment, we actually don't have payroll. Most of our employees, like I've said in some of the other conversations we've had, they're gig-based. They get 1099 at the end of the year. They work for lots of different organizations, not just us, and we pay them for all intents and purposes cash. So if the gig pays $250, we pay them $250. They cover their own taxes. They get deductions because of that, because they're basically a small business subcontracting to us.
Do you happen to know offhand the acronym EIDL? What does it stand for?
Yeah,
all included in the links down below. But so what is this allowing for you and your business? The COVID lockdowns have definitely changed the production industry.
Yeah.
Weddings, even for myself, I like to pick up a lot of side projects, and weddings is one of them during the summer. That's drastically altered and changed to near non-existent at this point.
Yep.
So how is this EIDL helping you?
So the big thing that the EIDL did for us is we were actually able to pay almost 8 months worth of rent off of the loan, which took a massive weight off of my personal shoulders. We had blown through all of our kind of our business nest egg moving into the space with the expectation we'd be able to start earning almost immediately. That didn't happen because everything got locked down. So suddenly we were on tap to pay the nearly $5,000 a month it takes to keep this place, just the doors open.
Some hefty overhead for a production company that's growing.
Yeah, well, and we were growing. We're on pace to do almost 50% more business this year than last year. Instead, we're down a lot. We're down 100% from last year, to be honest. We've had no income, virtually no income since February 29th of 2020. Yeah. So we had a couple of big gigs in January, one massive gig on February 29th. Since then, it has literally just been drips here and there, a $600 gig here, a $500 gig there. And they haven't really been gigs. They've been more people coming to the space and doing something with the space, where we've had to be really careful. We've had to do a disinfectant process afterwards, which has its own expenses and time involvement and product that you have to have in order to do it right. It's been a crazy year. It's been a crazy year.
Is there anything that's happened since you've moved into this new space, which we're on the live stage right now? It's really amazing. Got all the drapery and a bunch of lights everywhere, and I feel like a rock star out here. But since you've moved over to this space, you've built out this infrastructure. You've got a catwalk. You've got people running all sorts of stuff to help put on these really cool events and shows. What is it that you've done or you've learned since you've been here that come 2021 potentially can help with revenue streams or just developing the business and growing it?
The music industry in general and the performance industry and the entertainment industry is changing massively at this point. I mean, if somebody had said, hey, you're not going to have any shows and every musician is going to give away every bit of their music for free, all of their performances will be for free, everything is all going to be for free starting March 1st, 2020, I would have laughed my butt off and said, how is that sustainable? And it turns out it's not. Right. It's not sustainable. But we have put things in place as a country to try and help gig-based employees, people who are not able to work at all because there literally are no gigs. What have we learned? We've learned that at the exact worst possible time, we built the most important type of space that you could build in 2020. What we have is something every single artist, performance artist, within the 5-state region needs, which is a place that they can go with professional equipment, professional people to run the equipment, facilities that can handle almost anything. We got really lucky as we flushed a bunch of money down the toilet.
Right.
So we have this amazing space, amazing technology. We're doing live streams almost every Friday from the stage. Part of that is really for our education and making sure that we can get the bugs out of the system before we start charging for people to be on the stage. But we have started charging. Tomorrow night there's an event, private event happening that we'll be charging for the space.
Nice.
But it's a socially distanced event. There will only be 9 people in the building the entire time. And that's the kind of stuff that...
Those tickets have to be pretty pricey, I'm guessing.
9 people is including the musicians.
Okay.
So, yeah, we haven't allowed audiences in. And for the past few weeks, we probably could have. I'm really glad we didn't, watching the spike numbers starting to happen. I think things are still, really nebulous. What's going to happen?
Right?
Yeah, we just don't know what we're supposed to be doing right now, other than if you're out, wear a mask. Wash your damn hands.
Right. It's really interesting thinking back to when you'd mentioned February 29th, and I remember the end of February myself very specifically as the moment when I liquidated all of my digital assets. And then shortly thereafter, it was the end of February where I watched lines on charts just tank all the way into mid-March, but it's been slowly climbing out. Do you feel like that's kind of relevant in terms of your business itself, or do you feel like the EIDL or the PPP is just kind of propping you up until, what have you, in 6 months or 8 months, 9 months from now?
Our hope is that, so for the record, the EIDL is a loan. We have to start paying it back in June of 2021. It's an amazing rate, 3.25%.
Okay.
And we took it out for 30 years. So we took the maximum amount that we could. We took the maximum length of time. And we've been told that portions of it will be forgiven if it went to paying things like rent and things like that. So as long as we can prove that, part of that will potentially be forgiven. So maybe it will end up being a grant.
Document everything.
Yeah, document everything. It's critical at this point. So getting us through what's coming right now, that's the only thing that could have done it. I was literally, I think the last time we spoke, I told you, every month I get another maybe 6 weeks to move forward based on gutting different things, selling different things, and having people actually pay their rent for the space.
Sure.
We're very much a collective, and so we're not, luckily I'm not the only person on the hook for the rent, but I am the bulk of the rent. And I went into this knowing that on any given first of any given month, I could be the only person writing a check. And so when I took it over, I said to myself, okay, I can do this. I can do a month by myself. And I did.
It's a great way to go into any type of investment property, or
you have to.
Yeah, I'm literally in the process of bidding on multiplex duplex right now, and that was the way that I approached it. Is ideally, yes, I would like to be able to rent one of the units, but come COVID, 2021, can I manage it myself? So it sounds like from a business perspective and from managing your business, you did the right thing, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, it is. One of the things we're trying to move into with this space is giving people the opportunity to, one of the big focuses that we're about to start marketing to is there are many people who still want to get married. They still want to have an event because, it's a bride's biggest day of their life.
Sure.
The husband's too, potentially. So we're hoping to be able to start doing weddings here and allowing them to be virtual. So you can have your wedding, you have your big, beautiful wedding with a couple of musicians playing all the songs you've ever dreamed of having, so you can march down properly. We have a 7-camera shoot that we can do,
Yeah.
and then live broadcasting that. We've also created a partnership with a bartender who is portable. She actually brings liability insurance and the liquor
Okay.
to the space. So you can have a small ceremony, you can have a small reception with 10 or 20 people. Stay socially distant, wear your mask.
I have a question for you. So you're doing these virtual events so
Yep.
that the family and the friends can see the bride and the couples and the the wedding party. What about doing something where there's the reverse, which is they're here in the space
Yep.
on television screens, and there's a direct connection, a digital back and forth where they can just do like basically a bunch of Zoom. I
Yep.
don't want to plug that, but you know what I'm saying. The
Yep.
virtual teleconference between spaces.
Absolutely. We have the capability to do that. It's nobody's asked for it yet, but we're just kind of waiting for somebody to actually come along and say, "Hey, this is I want to be able to see my family." We have a way to do that, and we can definitely handle it. And we have right now currently we have 8 55-inch big screen TVs all on individual pedestals. I can put 8 screens on 8 screens, so you've got 64 attendees
Yeah.
to any event.
I know the TVs that you're talking about because you'd gotten into those, what is like last year, tail end of last year, and there were these really cool 4-up displays.
Yep.
What's awesome is that you have, you took the one intended use, which was for behind the artist on stage, typically, and you've now, shifted, and you're looking at problem solving, which is, it's a great aspect of any business or business ownership. So.
And that's kind of our claim to fame. I mean, that's one of the things that, Curbside Productions in general, that's one of the things we do. I'm not going to say better than anybody else. I'm going to say we do it differently than a lot of companies, which is we never say no. You've been on our events. I never say no.
We figured it out.
Yeah. Every once in a while I go, huh. You want to do what? But then we find a way. I mean, we'll do everything in our power to try and help somebody achieve whatever their dream is for their event.
Yeah.
To the point of darn near killing ourselves a couple of times. But, I mean, we try and be smart about things, but at the same time, if somebody has a dream, I mean, my job at an event is to help them achieve that. Your vision, our mission, that's one of our taglines that we use. That's the whole thing. So the idea of being able to put 64 groups of people in front of you, that could be, if there's 8 people in a family, you could have 300-400 people attend your wedding virtually.
Yeah.
Why not?
That's really cool. Yeah, it's always fun to work on productions with you because and that's production in general though, is
Yeah.
problem solving, right?
Yeah.
You got to have a widget for this thing, and I know a lot of what you do yourself is even self-engineering and manufacturing your own tools, and you had at the other space, I remember seeing drill presses and table saws and like all the things for doing stuff that isn't necessarily lighting and
Right.
cameras and audio stuff. So it's
For the University of Minnesota, we modified, I won't say we custom built, but we did some pretty major customizations to TV stands that in order to do their poster sessions, and coming up with a way to do everything and have the cantilevered mount for the touch screen and everything. It was really, really fun. It was time consuming, and it's something that not every production company would take on. They would farm that out to somebody else. It went really, really well. We got rave reviews from that last year. And that's the kind of fabrication that you're talking about that we'll do for a client. We have the skill set in-house. We have some really talented fabricators. Sometimes that's me. Sometimes it's other people.
Well, it's a testament to business in general, and for a lot of the viewers and listeners that may be out there with their own businesses or thinking about it. In order to do something like this, any business, any industry, is, for example, you have done everything from middle of the woods music festivals to big, really large wedding ceremonies out of state, music festival or music like in venues.
Yep. Corporate events.
Yeah,
major corporate events.
and then all the way up to academia, which
Right.
is you're in the Alumni Center at the University of Minnesota.
Right.
So this very wide spectrum, and it's this idea of having a lot of different lines in the water for those fishers. And that's kind of what it is you're out fishing for
Yep.
different elements, and it's great to see that you're carrying that forward even in the midst of a global pandemic, which is still, to just hear it roll off the tongue still to this day, it's the most bizarre thing ever.
It absolutely is. I'm 51 years old, and I've never seen anything like this. Not from an economic perspective, from a physical perspective, from a social distancing perspective, from a fear perspective. I mean, it's just there's so much going on right now, and trying to be respectful of all the different people and all the different views, while still, being pretty clear. It's important that we wear a mask
It's
when we're
real.
out. And
It's real.
Yeah.
And to deny that it is real is, I don't know. I won't ever understand that. But then I think, I guess, curious, what are your thoughts specific to? I mean, it is Coronavirus Diaries. We have been, keeping this little track record, and I don't know that I see any close come to COVID in the near future. Do you ever think we'll get like a vaccine, or it'll get managed better than it is, or what do you think's going to happen?
I look at Japan, which as soon as they said, hey, COVID exists, they said, oh, and they put their masks on.
Society that's very obedient.
Obedient, and also highly intelligent.
Aware that their science is a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And they listen to their scientists, and they say, what are the stats? Oh, really? I can do that math. Yep, that math adds up to me. Put on a mask. And everybody in society put on a mask and began to social distance. And in the entire country, they had, I think earlier today I read it was something like 823 deaths in the last 4 months from COVID.
Yeah.
Now, they are in general a healthier society than Americans anyway, as I sit here with my fat belly.
I'm not saying nothing. I don't judge, brother.
No, I'm in a high risk group because of it. I totally understand that. When I'm out in public, I wear a mask. When I'm out in public, I wash my hands a lot.
Yeah.
I put my kid in a mask. I'm doing that for two reasons. Number one, it does reduce the chance that I could potentially contract it. But more importantly, because I do work in the entertainment industry and I am around people, it is entirely possible that I could have it and not know.
Sure.
And so it is important to me that if I have it and I'm not showing any symptoms, I'm asymptomatic, that I not spread it to you. Because I don't know what your underlying health issues are.
It's a tough concept for some people to digest for some reason.
Yeah,
but
it really is.
It's the same thing that I'd thought about when the riots were happening, and I know you were posted up over here hoping that they weren't going to come into this area, which I don't believe they really did.
Nope, they didn't. But if they did, I had bottles of water for them. I had snacks.
Right, you had to feed them.
Yep.
But when I was doing that, I still remember the very first, it was like Wednesday, when there was the big protest over at the Cup Foods, and there's a dog in the space. There's a dog in the space, busted. But I remember the walking up to this protest and seeing thousands of people for the first time in months.
Yep.
And just thinking, whoa, this is serious. This could be a very detrimental thing, depending on, because it was still, I mean, it still is early in what's happening. But through that, the whole time I was just kind of like, all right, now when I go around other people that weren't out in the protests or that weren't rioting, I'm the one. Like, I'm the one that's potentially like bringing it into their space. So it's.
So the good news about that is most of those protesters were wearing masks.
Yeah, a lot.
They as much as they were marching together, they were doing their best to stay socially distant. We as a company, the moment it happened, we put a really small PA out that did a ton of work. Is still doing work today. We literally gave it to a group that does organization for protests, and we said, here's 2 speakers on a stick, here's a couple of microphones, here's an amplifier.
I think that was done at the WCCO, right? For something to do with media biases and
that was our PA.
Agendas. Yeah.
The second day at the governor's mansion, that was our PA.
That was a big one.
Yep.
There was
You were there.
Thousand.
Yeah, I saw you.
That was a block and a half from my house, bro.
That was our PA doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that trying to give us props. I'm not saying, oh, we're amazing. I'm saying this is one of the things that we tried to do during the protests, just to make it possible for people to have a voice.
Yeah. So voice is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. I was really amazed at some of the situations you put yourself in. Some very dangerous situations.
It was weird.
Yeah. Well, you're one of the few people I know who could handle himself in those situations. So I'm glad you came through it safely.
Well, the biggest lesson learned is, when you're in the middle of a riot, just go with the flow. Don't try, when you see people, everybody was breaking the law. Everybody was doing crazy stuff.
Yep.
And if you're there to document it as a photojournalist or as a videographer, the biggest lesson is that is all you're there to do, is to document. And you're lucky to get out without getting involved in some sort of altercation, if that's all you do.
Right.
So the moment that you you kind of assert, like, hey, that's bad, you shouldn't be doing that. That's when the mob turns and it becomes very dicey. So it was a good experience. Now I know if I go to a foreign country that's war torn and I'm trying to do some documentation, what I shouldn't do. But yeah, it was a good time.
I always am concerned about anybody doing kind of guerrilla journalism, and I'm such a poke my nose into thing kind of guy, because I see things that are dangerous. I'm like, that's kind of dangerous. I'm a dad, and I go into dad mode all the time.
You run a company, and you have people that work for you, and I know security is one of security and more safety.
Yes,
wise is
it's all safety, and so I'm always worried about things that I see people doing. I would have a really hard time, which is why, frankly, I didn't go to the protest for the most part. It's not somewhere I can support in so many ways. I'm here silently standing alongside anybody who needs me to, but it's not my place to be there, and I can't be effective. So.
The interesting thing, and we might be getting a little bit tangential, but I'm happy to go here. When suddenly improvised explosive devices started showing up in South Minneapolis, and there was vehicles with things inside of them designed to develop fire bombs, and we're not talking even Molotov cocktails, we're talking bigger explosives. It started making me think about the insurgency in the Middle East and how those tactics were being used against the population. That's terrorism, is to influence a population because of fear, using violence to create fear and direct a political initiative. So it's a very interesting time. So for you to say that in the 50-some years that you've been on this green earth, that this is a pivotal moment for you, I'm just holding on for the ride myself and trying to keep positive outlook on where things are going. Speaking of going places, where do you see things going for you in the next month or two?
We have, tomorrow we have a paying customer coming in and utilizing the stage, and that's a really great thing. They're going to document it themselves. It's kind of a private thing that they do twice a year. And so they're really excited to come in and use the space. We're excited to have them come in and use the space. So that's happening. We have some events that we're going to be supporting. We have a couple of bands that are playing in bars. We've been on a couple of those already. They're interesting. Some bars are doing a great job of following, and some of you bars are not.
What about
and
Wisconsin?
You should think about it.
Are you jumping the border into Wisconsin? Because I think they're wide open, aren't they?
Yeah, they're too wide open, and they're getting a spike because of it. And it's already statistically happening. It makes me nervous. I personally, I can't go. I'm high risk personally. I have a wife and a child, and I need to keep this place open. So I don't go. We're very careful about who goes, and they are working to maintain all of they're wearing their mask, they're wearing gloves, they're doing things like that. So it's one of those things. We have gigs coming up. I'm not sure how long they're going to last, because people have turned wearing a mask into something political rather than common sense.
I'd heard that back during the early pandemic, that the mask was a divisive thing then as well. There's people suggesting that it became this, again, it's, taking away my freedom. So it's a very interesting concept, how a little nickel mask or whatever, a surgeon's mask can be so politicized. Do you feel like it's got anything to do with the year that it is and what's going to the election year?
I think part of it is that, here's the deal. I'm old enough to remember when seatbelts weren't required.
Yeah.
They began becoming required in vehicles in the late 60s and early 70s, and people are like, I'm not wearing a seatbelt. You can't take my liberty away from me.
Well, I remember not being able to, not having to wear a seatbelt as a kid in the back
Right.
of a station wagon,
Right.
even up into the early 90s. Like it was a
Yep, back seats still. So here's the deal. Here's what happens in our society. Science comes up with a way to measure statistics, and they say, did you know that if you wear a seatbelt, you are 93% more likely to survive an auto accident? Oh, that's really interesting. Go to hell, science. I'm not wearing a seatbelt. And so eventually, the federal government comes in and says, okay, well, we tried to make it voluntary, but you guys keep dying because you're not bright enough to put on a seatbelt. And so they make a seatbelt law that
It's
says...
that choice, though, right? It's the choice. I got a story for you.
Well, hold on.
It's
There's
directly
always,
into this.
there are always people who will have the story about the person who survived
I was
the
on
accident.
scene of one of those.
I
and
believe
it was the passenger didn't have a seatbelt on,
Sure.
the driver did, and he got smashed in the
And
car
it's
and
all
died.
about
And I'm like,
statistics. And it's all about
Yeah.
statistics.
but
which
the
is,
freedom of choice, though, right?
But if you're not good at making good decisions, sometimes your choice has to be taken away from you.
Murphy's Law, right?
So here's the deal.
Darwinism, or not Murphy's Law, Darwinism.
So again, it comes
So
down
if somebody's
to this.
not smart enough, like, I don't actually agree that they should put warnings on chemicals that say don't drink this.
Oh, I think they
Because I think if a person is dumb enough to drink something that's meant for cleaning, something off of your toilet, then it's on them to, recoup the.
So what about a Mr. Yuck sticker so that a kid looks at it and goes, oh, that's bad?
That's good for kids, but kids aren't
Okay.
reading danger
Sure.
labels
Right.
that are really.
Yeah, exactly.
The Mr.
So-
Yuck sticker is for kids, like sure.
So the point that I'm making about seatbelts is because people refuse to do the right thing, sometimes we have to make a law. The mask.
Right thing is subjective.
No, the right thing. There is statistically you are much more likely to survive.
Right for who though? If it's a person that's taking their own life, I love where this is going.
Okay,
'cause
so
right for who?
statistically, you are much more likely to survive an auto accident if you're wearing a seatbelt.
But if you have freedom of choice, then you
There's-
should be
this
allowed
has
to
nothing-
take your life in your own hand, like riding a motorcycle
It's
without a
not
helmet.
legal to commit suicide in the United States of America. You can't legally commit suicide.
You still can though.
You can,
They're not going to stop
but you
you.
legally can't. If you attempt it, you
That's-
can be charged with a crime.
There's laws like you can't
Sure,
cross state
I'm so-
lines
but
with a
I'm
horse
saying-
and a bird on your shoulder or some
Sure,
weird
sure.
stuff like that
Well,
though.
there's all sorts of stupid laws. You can't ride a
Right.
horse backwards down the city of Duluth streets right now.
So if that's a law and you think it's
there are plenty of laws that should go away, but there was a reason that the law was created, and the reason almost all laws are created are for the same exact reason, which is nobody was smart enough to follow the common sense portion of it. And yeah, you can. It's fine if you
I
want
love
to
freedom
shoot.
of choice. I love the freedom of choice.
I do too.
If I want to ride wheelies down a road without a helmet and shooting a Roman candle off,
and if you're the
I'm not-
only person
Exactly.
within a mile,
Exactly. If
that's
I'm not
just
threatening.
fine.
So
So the problem being, you're not the only person.
yeah.
And that's where the COVID mask stuff comes into play, and where I was going with this conversation, which is if people refuse to take public health into consideration because, my freedom, then I'm sorry, bite me. We're going to make a law. There's going to be a fine. You're going to get stopped for it. And no, it's not harming your civil liberty when Target says you can't come in without a mask. That's a private place. That is not a public place. Target is a private business.
Yeah.
And if they make a law that says no shirt, no shoes, no service, and you have to follow it, those are both public health considerations. The reason that you can't go in without shoes on and without a shirt on, it's not public decency, it's a public health consideration. No mask, no service, that's part of the deal. So where we have people who are assaulting people, stopping them from coming in without a mask, I'm sorry, fine, we'll make a law, and it's a fine, and now you have to deal with it because you weren't smart enough to put the mask on in the first place. You weren't a reasonable enough human being to put the mask on in the first place.
Looking out for others.
Yeah, if you can't care about your neighbors enough to put a mask on, I'm sorry, we're going to where there's going to be a law, there's going to be a fine, and you're going to pay it.
So what do you think about the establishments that facilitate, like we're sitting here without masks on right now. Like, what about the bars we're talking about across state lines where patrons are allowed to come in, you're allowed to drink, there's not a mask involved. Does that then make the business liable for
It should.
being, okay. But then doesn't that present an interesting dilemma where they would lose their business if they didn't facilitate what their business is built around?
Yeah. So the thing is, going out, getting hammered, and spitting on each other while we're talking way too close and say, "I love you, man." I'm sorry. That you're not just dealing
America,
with yourself.
brother.
Oh no, but it
For all the
shouldn't
people
be.
within that establishment, I get that it will then transfer out of there.
Yeah.
But
And-
that's the interesting thing, though, isn't it? About what we're dealing with here is you can't see it,
Bingo.
you can't smell it, you don't know
Bingo.
anything about it.
But you can pass it, and then they can pass it, and 10 days later, we find out that you've been passing it to hundreds of people,
Yeah.
and now Grandma's dead. And now Uncle Bob, who wasn't that old but happened to have a health risk, is dead.
Okay, so then
Or has a respiratory issue that puts them on an iron lung for the rest of their life.
so what happens if in 2021 there's COVID-21, it's a new thing,
Mhm.
and there's one every single year after that for the next 20 years? Do
We're
we
gonna have to
become a
figure this out.
society that we just stay indoors and we all are like isolated and
No, it's really simple. You can put on a mask, and you can wear gloves. And in Japan, a country of millions upon millions of people, jammed and clustered way tighter than in anywhere in America for the most part, 823 deaths. Put on a mask, wear gloves when you can or when you have to, wash your hands. Really simple. And all of these, but my freedom, I'm sorry, bite me.
what about if
did
they
it.
created colonies where they could have all the freedom that they wanted, right?
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? And I'm actually fine if you and your group of can't do math friends want to hide in a corner someplace and get each other sick and die. Cool.
Listen, I've been on the fence, leaning both ways since the start of this. Initially, I was seeing the stuff that was coming out of France and Italy, and it was just terrifying. Like, wow, their hospitals are overflowing. Fast forward to where we're at now, and it's kind of, even with the questionable numbers and math that's being done based on COVID deaths and what that definition means, we're at like 135,000 deaths right now,
136.
roughly,
Yep.
in a country of 330 million.
Mhm.
And the unemployment rate is skyrocketing.
Mhm.
Mental health of people being isolated, no money, everything escalating rapidly, suicides and drug use escalating.
Sure.
That for me is enough to say, okay, what is the saying? If the remedy is worse than the
Yep. And I come back to the same exact thing. If everybody would pull their heads out of their ass, put a mask on, wash their hands, none of this would be that big a deal. We could start opening this country up if people would just be responsible.
a little bit of consideration can go a long way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. All of the places that I've been watching it like a hawk as well. I do statistics for a living
Yeah.
outside of my
Your
this
consulting
country.
work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is easy stuff. 4% of the people who contract COVID die of COVID. That
I thought it was
doesn't
4% have severe, and then there's a percentage of that then ends up passing. Neither here nor there,
yeah.
but
so
but that's based on those that have been tested, and so there's a lot of asymptomatic stuff going on.
yeah, exactly.
Which that number, in my own belief, and I put money on it, that 4% is going to become significantly smaller because there's so many people that I believe get it, don't know they have it, and therefore have never been tested or confirmed to
That
have
is
it.
possible, but I know people who are under the age of 30 who have recently survived COVID, and one of them now has what may be a permanent neurological disorder. He can't taste, he can't smell.
That was a common thing that
Yep.
they started identifying. I think
What
it goes
we
away
don't-
from what it sounds like.
Maybe it goes away.
Yeah.
It's going away in about 30% of the people
It'd
who
be a
get that.
bummer to not be able to taste or smell
Taste
anymore.
or smell? I'm a foodie. That would drive me insane. I would go nuts. The other side of it is that's all we know today
Right.
that he has a problem with. He could end up having a stroke. He could have a heart condition for the rest of his life. He could have respiratory problems later. You know, people keep comparing it to the flu.
It's different.
Let's
it's its own thing.
very.
Yeah, it's its
But
own
let's
thing.
compare it to chickenpox, which is a virus. So, chickenpox stays in your system for the rest of your life. If you've had chickenpox, there's a
Shingles is a thing
and it's an extremely painful, permanently disfiguring disorder. So if you're lucky, you get shingles on your chest. If you're not lucky, you get it on your face, and you have scars on your face for the rest of your life. So we don't know what's coming down the road.
So
Putting on a mask.
March, April, May, June, July, 5-ish months or so since it hit the States.
Yep. What's it going to be like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? Wear a mask, wash your hands. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
And that's what it all comes back to me. It doesn't, even if you know, oh, you know, I'm 35 years old, I'm unlikely to die from it today. Cool. But you don't know who you're going to give it to. And a simple thing like wearing a mask when you're out in public, social distancing as best you can. I mean, after you leave, we're disinfecting the space.
Yep.
That's what we do. After you leave, we disinfect. Every time we have people come into the space, we disinfect the space. We do it every single time somebody comes in.
Need to invest in more sanitation stocks, obviously.
Do you know how hard it is to find disinfectant wipes at this point?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And when you get them, when you see them on the shelf at Target, you can only buy one pack. There's 38 Lysol disinfectant wipes in that pack.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the more difficult things, is trying to handle that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Corey, I appreciate these discussions. I really do, and that's how we've become friends over the years, is that we're able to have discussions where there are opposing views, and yet we're able to respect each other's opinions.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, I appreciate your insight. Super stoked for you and the direction that you're going with Curbside, and really thankful that you were able to get the EIDL to keep going the direction you are. Was there anything that you were hoping to touch base on that we haven't touched?
My son is home.
Right on. So and how long were you not able to see your son?
4 months.
4 months. They were up at the
He was staying with my mom and
grandparents'.
her partner. Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, we brought him back on June 6th, and it's been great. So
Outstanding.
that's, if anybody's been watching this and cares, that was one of the big things that was really painful, was he was gone from actually, I'm sorry, not 4 months. It was 3 months, almost to the day, 3 months. So.
And what age?
He turned 8 while he was up there.
What did they think? Was it like a summer camp type of scenario for them, or did they understand what was going on?
So, you know, the big thing that made us say it makes sense for him to stay is they're two little old ladies, and they just absolutely dote on him. He ate like a horse. He grew 4 inches while he was gone. But the other thing was they were able to actually take that time during the day and work on his schoolwork with him and keep him. He didn't play video games while he was up there.
Good.
He didn't.
Learning.
You know, he colored. He did Legos. He helped them paint their mother-in-law apartment upstairs, which they were about to rent out. He got to do so many things that he would never have been able to do here. He went for a walk every morning with Granny. He went bird watching with Grandma. It made total sense for him to stay. I'm grateful he had the opportunity. He can't wait to go back, which is awesome. But you know, we're really grateful to have him home as well.
Yeah. That's outstanding. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you as always, Corey.
Thank you, Micah.
It's a pleasure to always have these discussions, and look forward to having one in the near future. For all the viewers and listeners out there, those that stuck around, check out the About section below if you're looking for any production or just knowledgeable information. You can always reach out to Corey at Curbside Productions. Until next time, stick around. We got more coming at you.
Have a good one.